I spent hours on crypto Twitter, so you don't have to. Here's what's happening. So members of the US House of Representatives are coming after Section 1960. But here's why this particular news isn't that big of a deal, but the broader context is still relevant. Federal law makes it a crime to operate an unlicensed money transmitting business. The relatively new concept of self-custody blockchain wallets has provided a wrinkle to this rule. Companies might make an app that lets someone interface with the blockchain network. Using that blockchain network, the person might send money. There's an interesting question of who actually did the money transmission there. Was it the business that made the interface, or was it the person who actually did the transaction? On traditional banking rails, or even on a custodial wallet app like Coinbase, it's pretty obvious. Venmo's a great example. I might be the one who's pressing a button on Venmo to send a friend money, but what actually happens behind the scenes is that Venmo moves money around. That is, Venmo, the company, does the money movement. It doesn't work this way in a self-custody blockchain world. I might be using an interface made by a company, but when I'm pressing a button on that interface to send money to a friend, it's just directly sending code to the blockchain network. The money then transfers on that network. No intermediary. US House Reps Scott Fitzgerald, Ben Klein, and Zoe Lofgren introduced legislation to address this question. Promoting Innovation and Blockchain Development Act of 2026 would make it such that these software developers of self-custody wallets would not be considered money transmitting businesses. If by some unlikely sequence of events this particular legislation made its way into law, it probably would show up in your daily life as you seeing more self-custody wallets, maybe more innovative approaches to self-custody blockchain wallets. Definitely wouldn't revolutionize your life or anything. But whenever I talk about legislation at the federal level, especially legislation that's just been kind of randomly introduced, I like to point out that legislation gets introduced all the time, and it almost never makes its way as such through the House and the Senate and then to the president's desk for signature. So I'm talking about this because it was part of the Twitter conversation as it just got introduced, including from folks who support or are actively part of developing legislation related to the blockchain industry. This is all to say that while the broader context and topic are pretty interesting, this particular news doesn't mean anything is changing. Not for developers, not for all of us as consumers, people who might use these apps. As a couple quick notes, a couple senators introduced similar legislation back in January. The concept got included as an amendment in the Senate Banking Committee's draft bill on broader market structure legislation. But as you know, if you watch my videos, that progress was moving quickly, then suddenly got stalled. A version of this concept also got included in the Clarity Act, which passed in the House last year. That's basically the House's version of broader market structure legislation. So where does this leave things? My broader read is there is a lot of momentum across the House and the Senate and in a bipartisan manner for some version of this legislation. How it actually sees the light of day, I have no idea.